Oh, well, okay. I'll just go straight into it. Hare Thank you. I'll say good morning here because I'm in Australia. It's so nice to be here and welcome everybody who's joining us today, live or afterwards. So of my spiritual teachers. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shishimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachare Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we're up to a very interesting part of this chapter. We've just come through the very detailed explanation of the soul and the difference between the soul and the body and how the soul is eternal and is completely, it's undying, it's eternal. You cannot burn the soul. It cannot be withered by the wind. All these beautiful slokas describing the difference between the body and the soul. Now, today, Krishna is taking a different angle with the next few verses, next 3 verses we're going to cover today. Chapter 2, text 26, 27, and 28. And here, Krishna is taking a different angle because he's starting to, he's given the basics of this Sankhya yoga, Sankhya philosophy, and analyzing the difference between the soul and the body. Now he's taking another angle of vision to help Arjuna understand this, that there's actually no need for him to be lamenting. And in these 3 verses, he actually starts taking a logical point of view, like using common knowledge, ordinary knowledge. And interestingly, he's saying that whether you believe in the soul or whether you don't believe in the soul, take a look at it like this, and it's kind of knowledge that's actually available for everyone, whether you believe in the existence of the soul or whether you don't believe in the existence of the soul. So whether you're like an atheist who has just thinks that we're this body and we live once and then that's it, he's taking an angle even for them, which is actually very, very merciful and kind. This knowledge is actually for everybody. There's something in it for everybody. So we'll go to the verse and we'll take a look at the verse 26 in chapter 2. Atta chainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mritam tatapi tvam mahabaho nainam sochitum arhasi. If, however, you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. So So far, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead, he's explaining to Arjuna all lots of things that are based on scripture. But now he leaves explaining about scripture and he starts explaining from the perspective of ordinary knowledge. So, from the perspective of common sense, in an attempt to try to make him understand that actually there's no reason to lament, and there's no reason to give up your duty for fighting. So, in the purport to this verse, our Srila Prabhupada, who has written these amazing commentaries on this book, he describes that there's different classes of philosophers, and some philosophers believe in the existence of the soul, and some do not. And even at the time of Krishna, 5,000 years ago, there existed philosophers that didn't believe in the separate existence between the soul and the body. He described them as Lokayatikas and Vaibhasikas, different types of philosophers around at that time. And then the way they viewed things was similar to the modern day scientists' view, and the mainstream view anyway, that the body is a combination of physical elements only, and at a certain stage of life, the symptoms develop by so life develops at some point by the interaction of the physical and chemical elements. So Krishna is saying that even if one is believing that view and that you don't believe in the eternal existence of the soul, still there's no cause for lamentation, because why lament for only a bulk of chemicals and stop doing your duty? So he's pointing it out from that point of view. And then he's also saying that if you believe that point of view, then you're not going to risk that there's a rebirth, and then there's no reason to be afraid of being affected by sinful reactions, such as killing your grandfather or your teacher and that kind of thing. Because if you don't believe in the existence of the soul and that there's karma and then there's reactions and sinful reactions in the future, then you're not going to be afraid of that. And then he's kind of sarcastically addressing Arjuna, because he's saying Mahabahuk. And remember Arjuna is his very dear friend, and he's trying to wake him up. And we also can remember that we are like Arjuna in the battlefield of life, and Krishna is also trying to wake us up. And he's sarcastically saying to Arjuna, Mahabahu, oh mighty armed. Mahabahu means mighty armed, and we know Arjuna is so strong. He can combat thousands and thousands of warriors and easily defeat them at one time. 10,000, I think it's even 100,000. He can actually fight on his own. He's very, very strong. But Arjuna's saying, like, he knows that Arjuna actually does believe in the Vedic wisdom. But he's saying that even if you look at it from a different perspective, from an atheistic perspective, still you don't need to lament for death, because death is if you're taking that perspective, it's just the particular group of elements that have come together in the body, and then it's ending, just like everything does in this world. But he knows that Arjuna has faith in the existence of the soul, and he belongs to Vedic culture, so it actually behooved him to follow this exists. So why lament? And then he goes on to further explain what this angle of vision. And that's the title of our class today is One Who is Born is Sure to Die. And he's looking at it in a logical perspective, that when you're born, naturally death will come. So why need to lament about it? So we'll have a look at the second verse of today, text 27. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmad apariharyerite natvam sochitamahasi. For one who has taken his birth, death is certain, and for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. So this is he's further taking this logic. It's completely logical, and And this happens in all spheres of life. This is the way this material world is going. Everything is taking, every living being, whether a human being, tree, animal, the demigods, every living being is born, has a duration of life, and then dies. So one who is born is sure to die, one who has died is sure to take birth. And according to the actions that each living being creates, in our present body, we're acting in so many different ways. And what the particular body, the particular look that we have, whether we're a female, whether male, whether we're beautiful, whether we're ugly, whatever specific features we have, and the family that we're born in, the situation, the nature that we have, all of these have developed due to our past activities in previous lives. And so when those particular the fruit of those activities, which is known as parapta karma, they're exhausted, then the body leaves. And then it continues, the soul continues on into another body to continue those activities. So this is common sense. So why lament? It's just part of nature. It's part of the way life goes. And this cycle of birth and death, it's revolving. And it's going around and around like a wheel. So Krishna is saying that in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. And another point that Srila Prabhupada makes in this purport to this verse is that the cycle of birth and death doesn't necessarily support murder. It doesn't support slaughter. It doesn't support war, because when there's that kind of action, you get the result, right? If you kill someone, you're going to be killed in your next birth. But at the same time, violence and war, they're actually inevitable. Like they're actually important in society to keep law and order. So, but the thing is, he's a Kshatriya. He's in the warrior class. So it's very important for him to continue his duty to keep the law and order in society. So he's saying, Krishna's saying, so why be aggrieved of the death of relatives when it's your proper duty to do that? So he's giving so many different arguments to encourage him to wake up to his duty. And there's something great that he needs to do. He needs to actually come into alignment with the will of the Lord, because this battle is ultimately the will of the Supreme. And it's actually an inevitable event. It came about, they tried to prevent it, but ultimately it's the will of the Lord that this battle would take place. And so he's encouraging him, just carry on. And even if you walk away from this battle, you won't be able to protect them from death. Your relatives, your teachers, they're still going to die. Whether it's now, whether it's in 10 years, whether it's in 50 years, whatever it is, everyone is meant to die. And even if you try to prevent death happening now, for example, if somebody's meant to die now, you won't be able to. If they're meant to, go wherever in this life, wherever it is, whether if you're, some people say, well, I'll stay away from such and such a place because there's war going on. Now, if you're meant to die, you will, and if you're not, you won't. I remember my spiritual master back, maybe 15 years ago now. I think it's probably more now. There's been many, many people in the time of our, who get worried about the Third World War coming. There's going to be shortages of food, and so people will like store things away and try and prepare, or go inland and build protection, build houses underground to protect themselves, that kind of thing. And at the time, my spiritual master, he was saying, he made the point that actually you're just wasting your time doing this, because death is going to come. One who is born is sure to die. One who has died is sure to take birth again. And so he was saying, he said that in the war in India at some point, there was a bombing in Calcutta, and there was some people who were hiding in a shed where there was some hay, and just a spark of the bomb came, and the shed went up in flames. So he was making the point that that wasn't the bomb; it was just a little spark. So whether you're meant to die or whether you're not meant to die, actually, it's the will of the Supreme. It's according to every individual's karma, where they're up to, and at a certain point, it is actually time for the body to move on. And it's, sorry, not the body, the soul. It's time for the soul to move on. It's time for the body to finish. So Krishna is saying, even if you walk away from this fight, you're going to be walking away from your duty. So you're going to become degraded from your, your choosing the wrong path, choosing from the wrong path of action. But they're going to die anyway. That's what's meant to happen. So ultimately, this verse is so powerful for us. We can see in our lives, and where are we lamenting about things? What is our attitude to death? And actually, everything that we're doing ultimately is preventing death. We eat every day. That's stopping us from dying. This is the world of birth and death, and if we just carry on trying to engage in the duties of the soul, because the soul is eternal, then we'll be situated in a place that is happy and completely beyond these miseries of birth and death that is always assailing us. In relation to this particular verse, though, it does bring up the point that actually everybody is thinking that they're not going to die. I've got a light going on here. I'm just going to turn it off. Sorry, let's place it this way. It's flashing. Okay, so we see that so many are dying every day, actually. But we actually think that we're never going to die. In the Mahabharata, there's an interesting story where Maharaj Yudhisthira, who's the elder brother of Arjuna, who is hearing these instructions from Krishna, he's questioned by the Yaksha. I won't go into the full story, but this Yaksha, he asks him, what is the greatest wonder? So Yudhisthira Maharaj, he replied that every day living beings make their way to the abode of death, but those who are left behind think they will live forever. There is no greater wonder than this. So, we actually, somebody dies near us and we think, oh, what? We get worried. They've left us, and it's really strange. They're never going to be there again. But their soul has gone on to a new body. But we still think that we're not going to die. We know, like intellectually and theoretically, but and the reason why is because we don't die. It's the body that dies. It's the soul that lives on. We are the pure spiritual being inside the body. And we actually know deep down that we don't die, because that is the truth. But in illusion, we think that we will die. And so, we get affected by all of these things so much. But Krishna is giving this knowledge to wake us up and give us the true light and happiness. And there's one other history that I want to quote before going to the next verse. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is another great epic. Bhagavad Gita is what we're going through now, and another great epic of the Vedic literatures is Srimad Bhagavatam, which is actually a lot longer than the Gita. And in Canto 7, Chapter 2, Hiranyakashipu consoles his relatives after the death of his brother. Now, Hiranyakashipu is actually a demon, and those who have seen the latest movie that's just come out, Maha Lord Nrsimha, will see this demon in there. And it's amazing that the demons in the Vedic times, they still had knowledge of the souls and the difference between the soul and the body. So he's consoling his family, his cousins, his nephews, his sister, after the death of his brother Hiranyaksha. And he quotes a story where the Lord of Death, Yamaraj, came as a young boy to instruct the queens of a king who had just passed away. And what he says to them is very, very interesting and very similar to the verses that we're reading now. So he says, this young boy who's come to them, who are lamenting after their king, the queens are lamenting after the king has just passed away. So he says, alas, how amazing it is. These persons who are older than me have full experience that hundreds and thousands of living entities have taken birth and died. Thus, they should understand that they also are apt to die, yet they are still bewildered. The conditioned soul comes from an unknown place and returns after death to that same unknown place. There is no exception to this rule, which is conducted by material nature. Knowing this, why do they uselessly lament? So this is coming from the standpoint of someone who has true knowledge. And those who have true knowledge, as Krishna is instructing Arjuna, can wake us up out of the illusion and establish us in the truth and free us from this lamentation. And he goes on to say, sometimes one loses his money on a public street where everyone can see it, and yet his money is protected by destiny and not seen by others. Thus, the man who lost it gets it back. On the other hand, if the Lord does not give protection, even money maintained very securely at home is lost. If the Supreme Lord gives one protection, even though one has no protector and is in the jungle, one remains alive, whereas a person well protected at home by relatives and others sometimes dies, no one being able to protect him. There's one beautiful saying, it says, Mare Krishna rakeke, rake Krishna mareke. If Krishna or God wants to protect me, then no one can harm me. But if he doesn't protect me, then I can be harmed. And this is very consoling, because if we can take shelter of God within our heart and align ourselves with him in our life, then we can be protected. But then at the same time, if we're meant to die, then we will. If that's the nature of this world, as Krishna is saying. It is, it is a natural thing that happens. It's the world of birth and death. So one can be protected as we were saying before, with the analogy of the war, with the example of, even the spark of the bomb coming to cause fire. He's saying that even in the jungle, if one can remain alive and protected, but you can die at home protected by your relatives. So that's, this world, that is the nature of this world. And he tells a story about a baby bird, sorry, not a baby bird, a pair of Kalinga birds. So one of the birds, so the birds, as you know, they have their lifetime partner. They find their husband or wife, and they live together forever. Well, not forever, obviously, for the duration of their life. They have their babies. So one of the two, the female, was captivated by the allure of a hunter, and the male bird got very upset. He was so upset that his wife had been taken. He was so unhappy, and he had little babies that were now bereft of their mother, and he's calling out to Providence, oh Providence, why have you done this? And he's lamenting and lamenting. And then while he's lamenting and he's come because his wife has been caught in a net by the hunter. And he's not aware of what's going on, but he's saying that he's so absorbed in lamenting for his wife that he's not thinking that his own death is near too. And then the hunter gets his arrow and he shoots the bird. And then he dies. So I mean, it's not a nice story, but that's the story of this world, actually, that we will lament for the death of the body, but of the death of somebody whose body has left, but their soul has gone on. But we're lamenting for the body, not realizing that actually very soon my own death is imminent. And what is the duty? What is my duty? Shall I be lamenting about this, or should I be focusing in the reality and trying to go towards the reality of the truth that I am spirit, soul, and I'm part and parcel of God? And if I remember my connection and loving relationship with God, then I will be situated in a happy, peaceful place and not affected by these things. So we're kind of coming to the end of our time, but I'll go to the third verse and we'll look at that briefly. So verse 28, Avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyaktani dhananyeva tatra ka paridevana. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? So again, he's approaching this same topic and going into it even deeper with even more logic. So everything in existence has these natural qualities, or this is what happens to everything. Everything is unmanifest before it's come. It's maintained for some time and then it ends. And, this goes to, we can look at a skyscraper, for example. There's all the materials there in the beginning. Everything ultimately comes from the earth. And then everything is put together and it's there for some time. And then maybe in 50 years or more than that, 100 years, it might be dismantled, knocked down, and go back to the earth. We have a garden, we grow the garden, things grow, and then it has its lifespan, and then it leaves. So everything has this quality. So why I need to lament? It's actually the nature of the world. It's the way the world works. So from these different viewpoints, we can glean a different viewpoint to the nature, and it applies to whether we believe in the existence of the soul or whether we don't believe in the existence of the soul, whether we believe the body is our identity or not. There's still no reason to lament, because one who is born is sure to die, and that is the nature of this world. But the thing is that we do cry out in grief, and that is because we have affection that is misplaced. We have affection that has risen out of delusion of thinking that we're the body. And that affection, that's why we grieve. That's why we lament for the loss of the body. And therefore, Krishna's teaching us even more through all of these different verses, how to come to this platform of real affection, because misplaced affection actually can't satisfy the soul. Misplaced affection is when we love we love only the body and we're not seeing the soul within the body, then it's always going to come to an end. Just like he's saying in this verse, everything is manifest. It is unmanifest in the beginning, manifest in their interim stage, and unmanifest again. Same with our affection and our relationships with those personalities. It's not there in the beginning, then that love develops, and then it ends. Every single thing, whether it's love, whether it's buildings, whether it's people, whether it's insects, whether it's relationships, everything is temporary in this world. And if we're living situated in the understanding of the soul, then we can start to see that every living being is a part and parcel of God. I am part and parcel of God. And every living being is meant for a loving relationship and service for God. And if I'm misdirecting that to just gain my own pleasure separate from God, and that's what we're all trying to do in this world. Ultimately, it's the world of exploitation, trying to exploit others for our own sensual enjoyment. And, and usually when someone passes away, we get upset because they won't be there to satisfy us anymore. They won't be there to serve us anymore. Ultimately, if we really look deeply, it's ultimately all about me. That they died, so they were not going to be there for me anymore. But what about them? What is their journey? They're going on to a better place usually. So it's all about a change of vision, and Krishna's very mercifully revealing this change of vision to us to wake us up to the reality and situate us in our eternal identity, that we are not of this world. As Param Pujapachya, the Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj says, that we are quarreling in a foreign land for fictitious gain. And this is a foreign place. We don't belong here. We actually, and the reason why we get upset with death is because we actually are eternal, and we belong in the eternal transcendental realm of God. And actually, in that quote, he says that we're quarreling in a foreign land for fictitious gain, but Krishna, what is he doing? He's in a loving search for his lost servants. He knows that we actually will, he knows what our eternal welfare is, our real welfare, more than anyone else. No one is actually out for our welfare ultimately. The closest relationship in this world for that is selflessly out for others' welfare is obviously the mother's love for their child, and that love and care, bringing up the child not for oneself but for that child. That's what Krishna's like, but he's like millions and millions of mothers, perfect mothers. And he's there as our nearest and dearest friend, our mother, our father, our beloved, our husband, our wife, actually every relationship he can satisfy. And when we ultimately all kinds of lessons that we experience in this world, lessons of hardship, lessons of sorrow and suffering, ultimately to bring us to this point that the ultimate problem we should solve is that I am eternal servant of God. And if I awaken my service mood and love for the Lord in my life and align myself with his will, then all problems are solved, even death, even the problem of birth, old age, disease, and death. And Srila Prabhupada was always saying, solve these problems, solve the problem of birth and death, not just trying to satisfy the whims of the body and focusing always in the temporary, because the temporary is temporary. In this same history that we read, it describes that in this life, it's like two people coming together at an inn and having a meet up and having in this day and age at a cafe having a coffee or having a meal together and then departing, and souls are brought together and then they part. There's another verse that describes that, like two logs of wood come together, they're floating together for a while in the river and then they part. And that is the nature of this world. But the eternal relation is with the soul and God, and that never changes. And through that relationship, then we can see all other relationships in this world, including the end of those relationships, which is death, ultimately a death, as in relationship with God, knowing that my husband, my wife, my family members, my friends, they're also eternal servants of God. And if I look at them in that light and serve them in that light rather than for my own sense enjoyment, then we'll be acting more on the level of the soul and working towards that eternal plane. So thank you. I'll finish there. It's a really good question. It's interesting. The first thing that popped into my mind, which is not really a daily practice, but I can't remember which philosopher it was, whether it's Plato or something. I can't remember. Maybe it was Leonardo da Vinci. Anyway, someone who's listening will know. Can share it in the chat or on the comments. But um, it, there was someone who wanted to have a skeleton in his room and to wake up and see it every day. It's funny, to wake yourself up that this is the world of death, and we are an illusion every day. If there's something that we could have in our life that that wakes us up, I don't know if it's going to be a skeleton. Actually, I was driving to a friend's house yesterday, and there was a skeleton of a tractor. We were going through the countryside, and there was a skeleton of a tractor, like an old tractor that was completely ruined, and but it was like a skeleton, and then someone had put a skeleton, like a pretend skeleton, in it driving the tractor. And I was like, okay, yes, we are. This world is a world of death. But the thing is that we in the Bhagavad Gita describes that our we have mind, intelligence, and false ego. That actually makes up the subtle body, the subtle covering on the soul. And the soul is like the seat, the passenger. I'm not sure if anybody's spoken that analogy yet, but it's coming in the Gita, that the soul is like the passenger in the chariot of this body. And it's being driven by the mind. So the horse is actually like the senses. And there's 5 horses, which represent the 5 senses, and they're going here and they're going there and trying to enjoy in this material world. The reins of those horses are the mind. So the mind gets pulled by the senses. But who's controlling the reins? It's the intelligence. And so it's with our intelligence that we have to decide what we're going to focus on. So our focus actually is everything. Krishna says in the Gita, whatever you meditate upon at the time of your death, that state you will attain, O Arjuna. So if you're meditating on a woman and you love them so much, then you're going to become a woman. If you're meditating on killing somebody, you're going to, you might end up becoming a lion. So obviously it's a lot more complex than that, because our life is made up of so many different actions and things, thoughts, but ultimately it's all about our focus. So what is our focus? And this is the point, that how to be in that state of being in that awareness of who we are every day. We have to draw our mind in. We have to control those senses, those horses that are going everywhere, that trying to convince us that I'm this body and that I belong here, trying to say, oh, enjoy this and enjoy that and taste this and drink that, and oh, look at that beautiful thing, and just absorbing in the body, and our mind chatter going chat, 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 trying to worry about this and worry about that. But how are we going to draw our mind in? And this yoga practice in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna has given is bringing the mind in through meditation ultimately. But I mean, the whole Bhagavad Gita is about this, right? To engage your life we're coming up to the points about karma yoga. It's not just about sitting down and meditating, but it's about doing that throughout the whole day, through our actions, every minute. What is my attitude every minute? And it starts the day with, it's important to start the day with meditation. Any type of meditation ultimately will bring us into this space, but the strongest meditation given in the Vedic literatures is all about mantra meditation, transcendental sound with the names of God, and which purify us and help us really be strongly situated in this understanding. But then throughout the day, it's all about being present. And that's the thing about meditation, it brings you into the present. Whereas our mind is always wanting to hanker, lament, find something to lament about or hanker for that we don't have. But being in the present, who am I? God is with me. How can I serve instead of exploit? And it's all about being in that present moment with whatever we're doing, whether we're working, whether we're cooking, whether we're cleaning, offering everything to God and not being detached from the result of the actions, which we're going to hear about a lot in the coming verses in relation to karma yoga. So it's a whole science. It's hard to answer in a few minutes. I just want to answer one question. Somebody asked a question, who is your spiritual master? My spiritual master is a very dear friend of Srila Prabhupada, but he was 20 years his junior, younger, and his name is Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. And thank you all
Thank
for
you.
Thank you. I'm just going to thank everybody who was present today. It's so nice to have comments and people giving their feedback as we're talking. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. There's also another question. I don't know if we have any time left to answer very quickly. Edwin mentioned that once they gave a book from Srila Prabhupada to a friend, and then they read the story of Yamaraj, and then they asked, "Are you allowed to suffer for someone's death?"
Um, I'm trying to understand that. So, are you allowed to suffer for someone else's death? Does that mean that um, you suffer in replace of someone else?
I think it's just like, are you allowed to grieve when
Oh, like is
somebody
grief
dies?
allowed?
Yes.
That's actually a really good question, and I think grief is really important. Like not really important, but natural. And all feelings are natural. We can't just stop. Like we're not going to become hard like stone. Like oh, I'm not going to grieve because my father's died, or like I'm going to block my feelings. No, that's not what the Vedas are trying to say. There, it's actually honor. It's natural part of life for all feelings, whether it's anger, grief, but it's what we do with them and if we stay in that grief. So I think unhealthy grief is when it keeps going and going and going and doesn't stop. And then we don't participate in life anymore. We can't, it affects our health and ultimately we get sick, like but grieving is natural. Grieving is, missing somebody is completely natural. But he's instructing them to come out of that, to wake them up, to give consolation. Actually, not to say don't grieve in the terms of block your feelings, but it's like yeah, those feelings are there, but they don't have to stay there. We don't have to stay reveling in them. Let them come, but you don't need to lament, like as you're saying, Edwin. Thank you, you're the one who asked the question, because Yamaraj is instructing them not to lament, but he's giving the wisdom to bring them up out of their grief. And when you see the reality of that, then you think, oh yes, and then you can rise up. But then still, I mean, my mother passed away when 5 years ago, and when you think about them, there's still some sadness there. But are we staying in that sadness? Are we revolving around in that sadness? And then this knowledge is there to wake us up and help us situate in the reality. So that's my take on it. I'm not sure if there might be others who say something different, but that's my take on it.
Thank you so much for your valuable time to sharing this wisdom with us today. And I invite everybody to join us every Monday at 7:30 p.m. and every Thursday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Have a blessing evening, morning, or whatever time of the days it is where you're looking.